Welcome back to Miles Reads. I'm Miles. Today, we're diving into Give and Take, a book that, as the title suggests, explores the dynamics of human interaction. But this isn't just about getting along with people, it's about success. The author, Adam Grant, argues that the way we engage with others is one of the most powerful predictors of our professional rise or fall. That might sound a bit dramatic. We're often told that success is forged from hard work, talent, luck, and maybe a pep talk from our mom after a tough failure. How could our interaction style be a secret ingredient? Is this just another way of talking about networking? Not at all. First, let's meet the author. Adam Grant is an organizational psychologist and the youngest tenured professor at the Wharton School of Business, one of America's elite institutions. He's not just any professor, he's consistently rated as the best in Wharton's MBA program and has been named one of the world's 40 best business professors under 40. He's highly regarded by outlets like Businessweek and serves as a long-term consultant for giants like Google, IBM, Citi, Merck, and even the United Nations. If you want to see him in action, his TED Talk, The Surprising Habits of Original Thinkers, is a must-watch. Grant has spent over a decade studying our social styles. He noticed that in the business world, we talk endlessly about win-win strategies, competition, and exchange. But one critical element is almost always overlooked or misunderstood: our fundamental approach to giving and taking. So, what exactly is a social style? Grant isn't talking about personality traits like introversion or extroversion. He is referring to the choices we make about how much we contribute versus how much we claim in our interactions. Some people see the world as a competitive, dog-eat-dog arena. They aren't cruel or backstabbing, but they are fiercely protective of their own interests, determined not to lose out. Their motto is, "If I don't look out for myself, no one will." Grant calls these people takers. On the other end of the spectrum are the givers. They are constantly thinking about what others can gain from them. They enjoy helping, sometimes offering support with no strings attached, and without expecting anything in return. This doesn't mean you have to be a Mother Teresa or Mahatma Gandhi to be a giver. In our closest relationships with a spouse, a best friend, a sibling, most of us naturally act as givers. In the middle are the matchers. They operate on a principle of fairness and reciprocity. They are willing to give, but they expect to receive something of equal value in return. For them, it's all about an even exchange. Every one of us falls into one of these three categories. So, how does our style impact our success? And which style is most likely to fail and most likely to succeed? Grant's findings are fascinating. Givers are the most likely to end up at the bottom of the success ladder, but they're also the most likely to reach the very top. For instance, in a study of salespeople in North Carolina, Grant found that givers who prioritized their customers' best interests often had sales figures that were a fraction of what takers and matchers achieved. They were hesitant to sell aggressively, fearing their customers would get a bad deal. Givers were overwhelmingly represented among the worst performing salespeople. A broader study revealed that givers earn, on average, 14% less than takers and are twice as likely to be victims of crime. But here's the twist. The top-performing salespeople were givers too. These successful givers outsold takers and matchers by a staggering 50%. The reality is, givers are the most likely to fail, but also the most likely to achieve extraordinary success. The complete truth is that we tend to focus on the failures of givers while vastly underestimating their triumphs. And this isn't just feel-good karma or a what goes around comes around platitude. Typical self-help promises that good deeds will be rewarded eventually, but never explains the how or when. Grant's approach is different. He uses modern social science to scientifically decode the mystery of why givers win. By the end of this summary, you'll see that the success of givers is anything but an accident. They aren't just giving things away, they are master value creators who know how to make the entire pie bigger for everyone. They build unshakable goodwill, and even their seemingly weak and deferential communication style is more influential than forceful persuasion. But can you spot a true giver? They might not be as friendly and agreeable as you'd think. And even among givers, some succeed while others fail, for reasons that are entirely predictable. In our personal lives, we're happy to be givers. But in the workplace, many of us hesitate. We worry about appearing weak or naive. We fear our efforts will go unrewarded. So, even if we believe in the giver philosophy, we switch into a different mode at work, meticulously balancing what we give and what we get. Even natural givers can be pushed into a taker mindset by high-pressure environments. Think rank and yank performance systems, battles over client lists, or commission-based sales rankings. In these scenarios, we instinctively assume everyone else is a taker and that giving will only lead to being exploited. This fear is pervasive. As one Cornell economist put it, we expect the worst in others, and it brings out the worst in us. Not wanting to be a sucker, we reluctantly suppress our own nobler instincts. The result? Most people default to a competitive, value-claiming, score-keeping mindset. But Grant's research shows that this fear of being used is not only surmountable, but that the truth is surprising. Let us talk about the business world's favorite topic, value. We see the workplace as risky because we misunderstand givers. We assume they're constantly seeding value, unable to compete. We're wrong. True givers aren't concerned with how much value they can claim from others because they're focused on creating it. They believe success doesn't have to come at someone else's expense. You can generate value by helping others succeed, which in turn lifts you up. It's a ripple effect, and givers are experts at making their success spread. How does this ripple effect work? In a team, a giver's first instinct is to grow the pie so everyone gets a bigger slice. They willingly take on the thankless tasks that others avoid, earning respect and admiration through their contributions. When a giver makes the team look good, colleagues feel gratitude, not jealousy. In return, when the giver proposes a risky or unconventional idea, they are met with goodwill and trust. It's simple. When everyone wants you to succeed, you are far more likely to. Having no enemies makes the path to success that much smoother. This is the most crucial reason why givers win. Consider one of the funniest people in American television, George Meyer. You know his work. Even if you don't know his name, he was a principal writer for The Simpsons, the longest-running sitcom and animated show in U.S. history. Over its run since 1989, the show has won 27 Emmy Awards, 6 of which went to Meyer. Though he wasn't the show's creator, there's a consensus in the industry that Meyer was the driving force behind its genius. He was described as the guy who has written more of the show than anyone else, has left his fingerprints on almost every script, and has had more influence on the show than any non-creator could. So what was Meyer's secret? Was he just a comedic genius? The world of screenwriting is full of geniuses. Before TV, Meyer was neither a star student nor an eccentric prodigy. His most notable accomplishment was losing all his money betting on dog races. He stumbled into television through a friend's recommendation and worked his way up. It was in the collaborative world of a writer's room that Meyer's giver advantage became clear. The most coveted job for a writer is drafting the first script of an episode, as it's the most creative part. Meyer, however, rarely wrote the first draft, despite being full of ideas. He believed his skills were best used in rewriting. He voluntarily took on the dirty work, spending months polishing, refining, and sometimes completely overhauling other writers' scripts. Was he just doing their work for them? Yes, and that is a hallmark of a giver in a team setting. They take on tasks that deliver the greatest benefit to the group, even if those tasks don't bring them personal glory. By making the team better, everyone, including themselves, ultimately wins. Oracle's Liz Wiseman distinguishes between a genius and a genius maker. A genius is often a taker, draining intelligence and energy from others for their own benefit. A genius maker is a giver, using their intelligence to amplify the smarts and capabilities of everyone around them. Meyer was a world-class genius maker. Beyond creating value, givers build incredible goodwill. This isn't just because they are generous, it's because they are skilled at connection. This includes not only meeting new people, but also re-engaging dormant ties. What's a dormant tie? It's someone you once knew well, but haven't spoken to in a long time. One study found that while we accumulate thousands of relationships over a lifetime, Before the internet, we actively maintained only 100 to 200 at any given time. Can those seemingly dead connections be brought back to life? A professor ran an experiment asking over 200 professionals to reconnect with someone they hadn't contacted in at least 3 years. At first, they were hesitant. Wouldn't that be awkward? Won't they find it strange? The reality was the opposite. Each participant reached out to 2 former colleagues for advice on a current project. Not only did they receive helpful and well-intentioned advice, but an evaluation found that this advice was more valuable than the advice they got from their current contacts. Why? Because dormant ties bring novel information. Former colleagues, now in different circles, offer fresh perspectives, while our current network often shares the same information and viewpoints we already have. Reactivating a dormant tie is also easier than building a new one because the foundation of trust is already there. The other person thinks, I feel comfortable with them. I don't have to guess their motives. We built trust years ago, which makes our conversation easy today. Now let's connect giving to influence. Everyone knows that success requires influence. We often associate influence with a strong presence, being dominant, assertive, confident, and controlling the conversation. But this dominant communication style is incredibly risky. If your audience doesn't already trust you, a strong display of dominance will be met with resistance. Givers use a different approach, powerless communication. This doesn't mean they're actually powerless. It means that, relative to dominant speakers, they ask more questions than they provide answers. They speak with more caution and less bravado. Their language is tentative, not absolute. They willingly admit their weaknesses instead of hiding them. Crucially, they actively seek others' advice rather than imposing their own views. At first glance, this looks like a weak way to communicate. But by showing vulnerability up front, givers have nothing to hide. Takers, obsessed with status, fear that any sign of weakness will undermine their authority. Givers aren't interested in power, they are interested in helping. This makes their vulnerability a source of strength. Imagine your company's creative team is stuck on a major ad campaign. You, an accountant or a salesperson, suddenly have a brilliant idea for a slogan. What do? How do you pitch it to the creative director without getting laughed out of the room? A taker might storm in, declare, I have an amazing slogan you have to use, and try to forcefully claim credit. A matcher might frame it as a transaction. I'll help you out now, but I'll expect a favor in return. A giver thinks differently. I don't really care who gets the credit. If the idea works, everyone, including me, shares in the success. They might walk into the director's office and play a recording of a slogan. What do you think of this? They might ask. Then, they add a disclaimer like, I know this is totally against protocol, but I wanted you to hear it. What are your thoughts? The phrase, I know this is against protocol, is a disclaimer similar to this might be a terrible idea. It's followed by a general question. What do you think? These phrases, which also include tag questions like, isn't it, or right, may sound unconfident. But when people work closely together, this powerless communication is often far more influential than dominant speech. Our speaking style sends clear signals about whether we are a giver or a taker. Takers are assertive and direct. Givers are more tentative and questioning. But you might be thinking, the givers I know don't sound like that. Are you sure they are actually givers? Agreeableness is not the same as giving. One is about surface-level personality, the other is about core motives and values. This gives us 4 combinations: agreeable givers, agreeable takers, disagreeable givers, and disagreeable takers. The ones we most often misjudge are the disagreeable givers, the gruff, tough as nails boss who, despite their abrasive style, generously gives their time, expertise, and connections. They're the leaders with a heart of gold. The most deceptive are the agreeable takers, the wolves in sheep's clothing, who are pleasant and friendly on the surface, but are ruthlessly ambitious underneath. How can you spot these disguised takers? Look for the 2-face pattern. They kiss up and kick down. Their dominance and control are reserved for their subordinates, while they are unfailingly deferential to their superiors. This allows them to climb by charming those in power, but it also sets them up for failure. No one likes being used, and the matchers in the world who believe in an eye for an eye, will eventually ensure they get what's coming to them. But what if you are a 100% giver and you still aren't seeing success? Remember, givers are also overrepresented among failures. So what separates the successful givers from the unsuccessful ones? The difference is that successful givers, while highly altruistic, are also highly self-interested. They're just as ambitious as takers and matchers. Self-interest and other interest are not opposite ends of the spectrum. They're independent motivations. Bill Gates calls them the two great forces of human nature. Purely selfless givers, who only look out for others, often burn out. They deplete their time and energy, and their empathy becomes a form of pathological altruism, an unhealthy focus on others that comes at the expense of their own well-being. The givers who succeed are otherish. They care about benefiting others, but they also keep their own interests in their line of sight. This allows them to accumulate a sense of joy and purpose from their giving, something takers and matchers rarely experience. While they may seem less altruistic than their selfless counterparts, these other-ish givers have the resilience and energy to make a sustained impact. To stay in the game, you have to give selectively and joyfully. Giving out of a sense of obligation is draining. Consider the 100-hour rule of volunteering. A study of over 2,000 older Australians found that those who volunteered between 100 and 800 hours per year reported higher life satisfaction than those who volunteered less than 100 or more than 800 hours. 100 hours a year, just 2 hours a week appears to be the magic number. It's enough to feel meaningful and energizing without becoming overwhelming. This is what otherish giving looks like. When you choose to help, it boosts your own mood. Economists call this the warm glow of giving. Psychologists call it the helper's high. Research confirms it. Spending money on yourself does little for your happiness, but spending it on others provides a significant boost. To recap, give and take turns conventional wisdom on its head, showing that success in the business world depends heavily on our style of interaction. And among these styles, it is the givers who often achieve the most. They succeed for three main reasons. First, they create value and make the pie bigger for the whole team. Second, they build unparalleled goodwill by activating dormant ties. Third, they master powerless communication, a subtle social language that builds influence and prestige. Finally, the book reminds us that givers aren't always agreeable and that not all givers succeed. It is the other-ish givers, those who balance benefiting others with their own ambitions, who are most likely to rise to the top.